Okay, so starting over here in the sport climbing area, if you just wanted to get into sport climbing, let's say a single pitch sport climbing, then you really don't need that much gear. I have a backpack right there. Let's see if I get my finger in. Yeah, and that's a 30-liter backpack, somewhere in the 25 to 30-liter range is a good amount because you have plenty of room for all your quick draws, your shoes, chalk bag, harness, any food and water for the day, an extra layer, what have you. I like the Black Diamond Speed Pack. Really any backpack works as long as you like it, pretty much, as long as it works with your outfit well enough. I like gray because that really works with any clothing I got. Up here, this is a really old set of quick draws that I have. I've had them actually, this was my first set of quick draws that I got like 8 years ago or so. And they're sort of old, outdated. And I keep them around just so that way I can bash them to hell. Anytime I get on a sport route where I'm planning to fall a whole lot, or not planning, but I know I'm gonna fall a whole lot, I'll bring these guys and then I'll just sort of beat them up. And it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but some of them have burrs, and they're just sort of my workhorse quick draws. I wouldn't mind leaving these up on a route for a day or two while I work it. And good note about quick draws, and some of the modern quick draws have different colored carabiners, but especially when it comes to sport climbing, the bolt side, which you can tell the bolt carabiner by the fact that it's loose in the bone of the quick draw, as well as the gate on this one is straight, whereas the clipping end is the one that's bent. It makes it easier to clip. You just want to get in the habit of always having a bolt end and a rope end, because what can happen is if you clip this carabiner to a bolt and you fall on it a whole lot, it can develop burrs right there in the notches of the carabiners, and a number of these carabiners do have burrs in them. And what can happen is if you flip them around and clip your rope to this one, those burrs can damage your rope, especially if you fall on them. So that's why modern day quick draws have really easy to tell apart carabiners that have the different colors and everything on them. But that's just a little pro tip for you. Now I do a lot of multi-pitch climbing, and so I really do enjoy sport multi-pitch climbing, but I am going to use slightly a different setup for that. Now these quick draws would definitely work on a multi-pitch sport climb. When I started, you know, I only had one set as well, so that's what I rolled with the entire time. But since then, I've upgraded to sort of a thinner quick draw. These are the Black Diamond Oz draws. I really love these things, and everyone I've climbed with has always complimented me on them. They're just super lightweight. I keep these quick draws around for, again, long climbs. I'll also use these for trad climbing. I won't exactly sport climb on them, not because it's like they're too weak for it or anything, but I just want to keep the carabiners, mainly the bolt side carabiners, in as good a shape as possible, so that way I can clip them into like sling material or rope if I need to, and then there's not a possibility of it being damaged. So especially when it comes to clipping them into cams, you clip them into that sling, and if there's a burr there, it can damage the sling, and then you have a bunch of annoying things on your hands. These things right here are called alpine draws. And what it is it's just a 24-inch sling, or some people call them 2-foot slings or 4-foot slings or shoulder length slings. They have a million different names. And the way how they're set up, so you can unclip one carabiner from the 3, clip it into one, then provided it stays where it's at. Let's see how it'll just unfold on you like that. And then you have a longer extension in order to or for whatever you need it for. So they're actually very useful, especially multi-pitch climbing. When you're climbing pitches that wander all over the place, this can help out with rope drag. In trad climbing, it can help out with not lifting out a piece or not disturbing a cam that's clipped to the rope. They just have a variety of different uses, as well as it's 2 carabiners and a sling, so good raw materials if you need to perform a rescue or anything like that. So on any given multi-pitch climb, I just bring 12 draws. all together. You know, it's never bad to have extra gear. And I'll bring 8 sport draws and 4 alpine draws. There's only 3 right there. That's because I used the 4th one for the sling to hold it all together. Right there, those are the carabiners for it. And that's something I like doing, so that way I don't have an extra sling that's just running around in my backpack doing nothing. As far as what goes on your harness, for single pitch sport climbing, here's my harness setup. And this is just generally everything I keep on my harness. So there's my harness up there. It's a black diamond harness. I forget the name right now, but it's not that important. And then I just keep all this stuff on my harness. Now it is a little excessive for a recreational climber. I carry all this stuff when I guide, and even more actually. But what I have right here is double length sling. I have 4 locking carabiners, just free lockers, and these are carabiners. You notice how this one is shaped like a D, and these ones, the sides flare out. So those are different carabiners. They're meant for different things. So I have 4 or 5 carabiners, and then I have 2 D lockers. And so yeah, having 4 of these is a little excessive. You can get away with just 3, those 3 right there. But I carry 2 extras because usually the people I climb with need another carabiner, or again, if I guide, I want to have some extra gear for if a client needs it, or if I need to perform a rescue. Usually I'll carry the extra carabiners just in case I have to perform a rescue. And every now and again you do lose one, so it's kind of nice to have it. So the 4 lockers, I have an ATC right there. ATC guide mode, very important for multi-pitch climbing, with 2 locking carabiners. Notice how this one right here is a parabiner, and this one right here is a D carabiner. So those are there for different things, or different applications, I should say. I have my belay gloves right there. That I think that's 20 feet of 6mm cord, which I keep on me for rescue purposes and if I need it for an anchor. And then I have 2, at the moment, I have 2 quadruple length slings. Now if I'm guiding, I'll carry 2 with me always. If I'm recreational climbing, I will ditch one of them. So I'll just carry, like, these 2 pieces right here are my anchor materials that I bring along. And then that right there is my 3rd hand, which is a sterling hollow block on another locking carabiner. But all this stuff pretty much lives 24/7 on this harness. This is my outdoor harness. If I go to the gym, then I'll use a older harness that I've since stopped using outside because I got this nice newer one. So if I'm ever single pitch sport climbing, usually just because I'm me and I don't single pitch climb all the time, like I multi-pitch climb more than I single pitch climb, I'll probably bring all this and then just leave it in my backpack in case I need it. It is a bunch of raw tools that you can pretty much do anything with. But while I'm en route, I'll bring my ATC, and I'll probably just keep those 2 lockers with it, another locking carabiner, and a double length sling. And that depends also on what the anchor setup is. If I know when I get to the top it's going to be cold shuts, or the chains have carabiners on them and I can just lower off, I probably wouldn't bring any of that and only bring quick draws. If I'm multi-pitch sport climbing, in addition to the multi-pitch sport climbing setup, then I'll probably end up bringing all of this. Yeah, it'll be something along those lines. I like the quad length slings because I can make those into quad anchors, and then I can leave them together for the entire climb. And I always have my cord on me, mainly for emergency purposes. I haven't used it in a while. And then everything else just has a use and a good purpose, and there's no reason not to bring it. So, especially multi-pitch sport climbing, because you already don't have that much gear on your harness to begin with. So I would recommend taking a class in order to sort of learn the in and outs of all this, and I'm going to have more videos in the future to run through my particular system that I have set up here. But that is what I will bring for multi-pitch sport climbing. Now, another thing is, notice how I have all my anchor materials racked on one carabiner? And then some of you are thinking, but there's 2 bolts. There's always 2 bolts. What I do is I grab one of my Quickdraws. This is one of the reasons why I always bring 12 with me, or I'll make sure to always bring extra Quickdraws with me. For this reason, is I clip one of these to the bolt, and then I have my one carabiner on my other sling material, so that goes to this bolt, and then I will just run the other section of the anchor through this carabiner, and then that gives me another point that I can clip off anything to, or the rope. So that'll be explained again in a future video about sport multi-pitch anchors. Another thing I will bring, actually, while I am single pitch climbing, and I've actually recently been bringing this out while I'm just climbing with friends in multi-pitch settings, is my grigri. Trusty grigri. Just kind of like using it for this sort of thing, and I think it gives my partners a bit of feeling of security. I've climbed with some people where they didn't let me blame unless I had some sort of assisted device, and other people have said only grigri. So maybe it's just because they didn't trust me. Anyway, it's a nice tool to have. Also, while I'm sport climbing, I will probably have some more intense shoes, again because it's climbing stuff at my limit, so it's nice to have some shoes that help you perform to your max, as well as chalk bags. I do have one chalk bag here. This is more of my long route chalk bag because it has a chalk ball in it. I used to carry loose chalk with me on big climbs, but one day, a really windy day in Smith Rocks, it blew all the chalk out of my chalk bag. So I sort of learned the hard way to have a chalk ball with you. And then I have a different chalk bag with loose chalk in it for hard climbing or climbing in the gym. And then you got the chalk bucket for bouldering, of course. Moving on to trad climbing. So trad climbing in Washington isn't quite as gear intensive as well, Yosemite, I suppose. But I think I sort of narrowed everything down to a decent rack that would work for just about anywhere. And the starting point with that is, based on the climbs that we have here in Washington, most of the trad climbs, I usually bring one number 3, 2 2s, 2 1s, 2.75s, 2 0.5s. This right here is the same size as the 0.5. And then I'll bring a 0.4, 0.3, and then a few micros after that. I just recently sort of switched, we could say, to the Alien cams because they're just so good. They're really nice cams, and they're really well designed, so I've been using those as my smaller cams lately. But here's what I'm talking about with the 0.4 and the 0.3. And then anything below that can be considered a micro cam. I used to use the Black Diamond C3s, the 0.2, the 1, the 0.2, the 0.1, and the 0 is what I would bring out. Now I got the green, the blue, and the black Alien, which are just about right. You can see, it's like, I haven't really actually placed this yet. I don't think so. So just down to that's probably between the 0.1 and the 0 of the Black Diamond C3s. So this amount of cams will get you through, will get you to nearly anywhere. And the cool thing is if you and your buddy both trad climb, or you're getting into trad climbing, just buy one set, and you can combine your sets, and then you have a full double rack. You'll notice how I've laid out a couple extra cams right here. That's because if I go to a place like Index, I'm going to bring a double rack. That place is just too gear intensive, especially on routes that I haven't climbed before. I want to be more prepared. On routes that I have climbed, then I can narrow it down to like a single rack perhaps. But generally, if I go to Index, I bring a double rack, and I put whatever cams I don't feel like I need in my backpack. So that's what that extra 3 and the 0.3 and the 0.4 are for, is to buff out this rack. That way I'd have doubles from 0.3 size to 3. And that's really what you want to start out your trad rack with, is you get a 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 7.5, 1, 2, and 3. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cams. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So 7 cams is a great place to start out with for your trad rack. And I understand they're expensive and you have to, the thought of buying 7 at one time kind of sucks. But after you buy the initial expense of getting all 7 of them, then you can buy one at a time a week until you sort of buff out your trad rack. And well, actually, along with the original purchase of 7, you do want to get a set of stoppers too, or of course some people like to call them nuts. We got about, I think Black Diamond sells this as a set. Actually, Black Diamond has 2 sets. They have the, I think the Pro set, which is like number 1 to 13, which is the biggest size that they make. You don't want that. You can get the number 4 to 13. I think number 4, here it is. So that's the size, that's the range you get. That's the number 4. This is the 13. That's plenty right there. Also, the smaller size nuts aren't even rated for dynamic falls. They're more for aid climbing, which you don't even need to get into right now. So having that amount of stoppers is good to start out with. You may notice I have these ones and this one too. These were nuts that I found out on a climb and my buddy was able to clean them, so I added those to my set too. But in Washington, you actually don't use stoppers too often. You know, it's not exactly a commonplace, or it's just a lot more friendly to cams. And cams in general are a lot more friendly to place as trad gear. So generally I divert to cams. It's a lot easier to clean too. As far as quick draws I bring, generically, I'll bring 4 of those sport draws. Again, the Oz draws that are super light and they don't take up a lot of space. And then 4 more Alpine draws. There's 3, and again, I'm using the 4th one to sling all my cams. And that's not like, there are other places. This is sort of my generic setup. If I go to Leavenworth, I'll use this. If I go to Index, again, maybe I'll throw in a couple extras. There are a couple of climbs where you'll need a number 4 and a number 5. You can actually go all the way up to 6 in Washington, but for generically, you're not going to go larger than a 4, especially your first couple times getting out there. So having 1 4 wouldn't hurt, but the more important ones are the 0.3 to the 3. So you definitely want to get those first. Let's see now. Helmet. There's no place in the world that's going to advise you not to wear a helmet while you're out there climbing. So, have I actually not worn a helmet while climbing? Yes. We're all guilty of it, but no one's ever going to tell you that you shouldn't wear a helmet. So, take with that what you will. Don't think you'll see too many people at the sport crag wearing helmets. Going over here, I do have another backpack laid out. This is a 35-liter backpack as opposed to the 30-liter I had over there. This may be more useful for bigger climbs, like, or climbs with more gear, if you have a trad rack, for example. Or perhaps you're climbing where you have to put the rack and the rope in your backpack because your partner doesn't want to carry it or whatever. Generally, it's divided up as one person takes the rack, the other person takes the rope, but that doesn't always happen. As well as on longer climbs, you may want to bring a separate backpack other than your backpack they're using to carry everything in, like a small 20-liter or even a 15-liter backpack, and that'll be your en-route pack. And then you can shove that backpack along with all your other stuff in that big one and walk up to the crag with it. So that's getting into more advanced stuff, but it's just useful if you're gonna trad climb to have something a little bigger in your arsenal. Down here is my medical kit. Never really leave home without it. It actually just lives in this backpack. And I have a smaller one too. This one's the 0.9. Here's my Hanford scale. It's decently big for taking up space in your backpack, but you can always find a place for it. I also recommend that you actually know how to use the equipment inside. It's not enough to just have the medical kit. A lot of people just have a medical kit and they don't know how to use it. You know, if you need wound closure strips and you have a medical kit, but you don't know how to use them, it's kind of pointless. So that's my little plug for getting proper training. Here I also have other shoes. These ones are flat ones. Good old TC Pros. This is actually kind of a staple Washington shoe because we have granite here, but see how they're flat. These are more of all-day sort of comfort, crack climbing. They're built for different things. You do want shoes that are going to be good at crack climbing because of all the, if you're going to trad climb, I mean, a lot of trad uses cracks because you need cracks in order to protect it. I already talked about my chalk bag. Here's a rope. There you go. One rope isn't really going to get you absolutely everywhere, no matter where you are. This right here is a 60 meter 9.6. It's actually a pretty nice rope. I've been using it for a while now. But the idea that you want, what you really want in a rope is, if you're buying your first rope, I recommend a 60 meter. Somewhere in the 9.3 to 9.8 range would be nice. If you want to buy a second rope and you already have a 60, it may be worth getting a 70. And then if you're looking for a more high performance rope, you can sort of move into dry treatments or anything like some sort of sheath protecting. You know, they have all sorts of strange stuff, bi-pattern ropes. This rope isn't bi-patterned, but it does have a prominent middle marker. And you either want bi-pattern or middle marker to be on your rope if you're going to multi-pitch climb. That makes life a whole lot easier. So it's just sort of things to consider. If you do want to multi-pitch climb one day, like if you're just sport climbing in order to learn how to multi-pitch climb, might want to get slightly thinner rope, somewhere like this 9.6. Or if you're planning to just sport climb on it all day, then get maybe a more burly rope. Ropes nowadays are super burly and they're still super thin, so it's kind of nice to deal with. But if you get a rope that's too fat, it's really going to suck pulling through your ATC while you're top rope belaying on it. As well as other places may have different requirements for your rope. Anyway, so that's just about everything you need to get into sport climbing, single pitch sport climb, multi-pitch sport climb, or trad climb, as well as this works for single pitch and multi-pitch trad climbing. But that's just about everything. You can always comment below for those of you who have done it before and add in anything that you feel like I missed. I know a lot of people like bringing personal anchor systems up with them. Me personally, I just use a double length sling when I get to the top to make some sort of rappel tether with, and I explained that in my other videos. I don't feel like it's worth bringing up a double length sling unless you're doing something really intense with rappelling, or maybe a whole lot of rappelling. As well as I do have some other stuff missing, like a good pair of approach shoes, not flip-flops, because approach shoes are really well recommended for any sort of hiking, or if you have to deal with any sort of rock scrambling. Just helps add so much safety. If I go out single pitch sport climbing, I will bring a pair of flip-flops because I don't want to change into shoes every time I take my like tight rock climbing shoes off. So and you know, it's just so chillax, man. So again, that's just about everything I feel like you need. This wouldn't cover exactly everything in Washington. Darrington, for example, is kind of a more specialized climbing area. With the way how the climbing is, it's very slabby, like more slabby than some other places in Washington. As well as the gear is just a bit on the different side. Usually you need only a single rack from somewhere like the Yellow Alien to the Yellow Cam, and just one of each size up until that point. That's what I mean by single rack. And then you need something more along the lines of 14 quick draws. So everything's set up a little bit differently when you're climbing at Darrington, as well as the ropes. All the pitches are over 35 meters, and so you need 2 ropes to rappel. And so that gets into double rope systems and twin ropes or half ropes. but that's a topic for another video. So this won't get you through all of Washington, but this will get you through like 95% of Washington. And the important thing is just do your research on this particular area you're at and the particular crag you want to climb at, and then set up your gear accordingly. I like to climb pretty much everywhere, and so I set up my gear specifically so I could climb everywhere. That's pretty much how I set it up. As well as this setup right here is really good for multi-pitch climbing and Smith rocks as well. So little tip off there.